the Patriots are releasing four-time Pro Bowl cornerback Stephon Gilmore. ESPN's Adam Schefter reports. And this is on the heels of Jalen Smith getting cut from the Cowboys. So these defensive players just getting the boot all of a sudden after week 4. Gilmore was eligible to come off the physically unable to perform list after week 6. The market for Gilmore, the NFL Defensive Player of the Year just 2 years ago, 2019, is expected to be robust. Multiple teams are expected to be interested. And the 31-year-old Gilmore should be recovered from his quad injury in the coming weeks. Key, what gives? He's going to be recovered. He's an excellent defensive player, and they're cutting him?
Well, I think you got to read a couple things into this. If you remember, Stephon Gilmore a year ago wanted a contract extension. He had a little tit for tat, kind of like not necessarily a holdout situation. Then he gets hurt with the quad injury. He hasn't been able to perform for them. And, Belichick, after a while, he's like, I've used him up, much like your running back theory, is I got this dude for however many years I need him. I got what I can get out of him. And at the end of the day, he's no more good to us. We've got to move on from him, and they're moving on from him.
Don't go on the pup list if you play for Belichick, apparently.
Well, I think outside of maybe like Tom Brady and a few other old-time New England Patriots, after a while, it's like when he thinks that you're done, whether it's Deion Branch, Richard Seymour, he just Lawyer Malloy. I mean, he just says, I can't get any more or out of them. Let somebody else deal with it.
Now I'm really curious to understand what Bill Belichick sees, even though he would never say that publicly. You automatically start thinking, okay, for Gilmore, what's a good landing spot for him? Like if you were Gilmore, where would you want to be?
Well, he could always go to Tampa and hang out with Tom Brady. Stephon Gilmore's injured. And so Bill's like, you're injured. You don't help me. You was injured last year.
You want to get paid?
Not for us.
Already, like, why pay for going forward for what you already did for me if I didn't have to pay for that?
Yeah.
Jalen Smith, too, is like, I know we're talking about
when
Gilmore,
you start to get up to 30 years old, Jay, at football, they be looking at you different. Yeah. This ain't baseball, hoops. In hoops, you get to 30. You're like, hey, we're going to give you another $700 million. In football, you get to 29. They get to talking about, yeah, you walk funny. Something wrong with you. It's a different feel when you start to creep up in age.
Unless you're Tom Brady and you're 44 years old.
Well, quarterbacks, they look at differently.
Yeah.
But other skill positions, they find a way not to pay you.
So the NFL is the one league. It's the most meritocratic. It doesn't matter what your reputation is, this, that. They will find out if you can play or not.
That's too big, man. Explain.
Based on merit, right? Based on merit. Meritocratic, meritocracy, merit-based.
Yes,
The point is, you guys act like you didn't go to college. You went to college.
All
right, look. The point is, other sports.
Well, not us, our listeners.
Other sports, it's not the same as the NFL. No matter what, even if you're a good player sometimes, right? Like, think about the Cowboys, Van Der Esch and Smith. That was like one of the best tandems on paper in the NFL. What, 2 years ago? Just like that.
Yeah. In baseball, you're like Clayton Kershaw. You're like coming off injury. You got a little elbow here, a little rotator cuff there. Hey, we got another $80 million for you.
Yeah.
That's just the way it is.
Yeah. In other sports, it feels like your resume means more. They're like, all right, you had a bad season or two, but you're good. We're going to hold on to you.
Think about it. The Clippers just gave Kawhi with another 170. Like, hey, here, you'll be fine. Here's another $170 million. We'll worry about that 3 years from now.
What is that in the NFL? Is it because it's such a physical sport because there are fewer games to make an evaluation?
It's numbers, right? You got a lot more bodies. And players, it's a violent sport. So you get injured. And so if I keep paying you and then you get injured, I got to replace you. So now guess what? In order to replace you, I got to replace the same Max Kellerman. I can't take a lesser Max Kellerman. I got to get the same guy. Now I got to pay him what you're making or more.
I don't want to exaggerate it, right? But it almost and football is a war game. The old George Carlin line, right? It is set up. You're taking over territory, the whole thing.
It's violent.
But I wonder what is the mentality that allows you to prepare on every play, knowing your whole future financially is at stake and it could end on every single play, different than basketball or baseball because of the violence. I'm sure you feel something on your ankle. You're like, oh, please.
Well,
right?
That's why out of all the sports, the one sport that they be trying to get the bag is football. That's why dudes be trying to get their money. Like, out of all the sports, the one sport always contract issues is in football. You know, holdouts or gripes about their money. You don't hear it in hoops. You don't hear it in baseball. You hear it in football. Like literally every year there's somebody, Jay, talking about, man, I got to get that bag, man. I got to get that bag. I had a conversation with a kid the other day that we were talking, and he's injured, and he called me about whether or not to go back based on his injury. And I gave him whatever fake medical advice I could as a Dr. Johnson. And one of the first things he said, man, I got to get that bag, Key. And I'm like, yeah, but you got to also make sure that you're securing yourself, because if you put bad tape out there, they're going to look at you differently than when you got good tape. You had great tape last year. And if you injured this year and you try to go back and play and you put bad tape, they're going to use it against you. But his whole thing was, man, I got to get that bag, man. And he's 2 years away from really getting the bag.
Oof. That's the thing in football. I mean, in basketball is 13-man roster, smaller roster. Like, you know, we talk about Dennis Schroeder kind of mishandling the bag, but now he's with the Boston Celtics, and he'll probably have another opportunity to attain the bag, right? You know, unless there's some really bad injury. But in football, man, the retention rate is just turnover so fast.
And it requires more teamwork from more players who have to trust each other than any sport. And at the same time, locker rooms with everyone at a different point in their lives, what their money is, what their future is.
You know when it's coming, though, because they start talking to you different. They start looking at you different, talking to you different. You know what I'm saying, that conversation. You know what I'm saying?
What's the difference?
You could just tell. Like, you literally could tell, okay, they getting ready to do this dude in. Because they talking to less reps in practice. He's taking less reps in practice. The conversations on the sidebar from 2 years ago, that sidebar really ain't happening now. Oh, I can see it a mile away when the dude getting ready to get the axe.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN Plus right now.